Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another episode of Achieving Perfection. This is going to be for the Geier Reach Bandit node in Avacyn's Madness. So I'm going to go ahead, show off the decks that I would suggest using. I'm going to go over the node itself, and then I'm going to get into deck building. So what should you do if you can't make either of the decks that I am suggesting? So for newer players, I would use Ob Nixilis Reignited, and I would use something like this right here. And then for players who have basically everything, this is going to look very familiar if you saw my video on Avacyn, but I would use this Second Sun deck right here. So just swap No Mercy for Settle the Wreckage. All right, let's take a look at the node. So this node is going to have 289 health. It's got very, very good mana bonuses. For its abilities, it's just got for 6 loyalty, summon 3 1/1 flying spirit tokens. And then for our objectives, we need to win the fight and then either go for Pacifist or Destroyer. So Pacifist is kill 5 or fewer enemy creatures during a fight, and Destroyer is to kill 8 or more creatures during a fight. My suggestion is that for people who can go for Pacifist, they have the cards to make an aggro deck that will enable them to overpower the node. Go ahead, go for Pacifist. And if you are a much newer player to the game, you don't really have so much at your disposal, then, if you can win within the Pacifist confines, by all means, go ahead. But you're probably going to be looking to go for Destroyer, right? It's better that you at least make one of the two happen rather than neither of the two. So the node itself, for the creatures, it's running Sigarda, and Sigarda is kind of annoying, right? In that she has, wow, that was terrible. Like, oof. Sigarda has 8 toughness. It's got flying and vigilance. It'll make it so that the opponent and all of their humans have hexproof, and then 5 activated gems to summon humans. Those humans will have hexproof. It's also got Rattle Chains. Rattle Chains is an 8/7 flying with hexproof and makes spirits cost less mana. They're going to have Geier Reach Bandit, and that's a really nasty card, actually. So if you're unfamiliar with this particular card, you'll probably be pretty familiar with it by the end of this event. So Geier, right? Yep. Okay. 6/5 with haste. And then at the beginning of each turn, if no cards were cast, it transforms. And then it transforms into a 12/11. So really, really nasty card. And then finally, Audric. Audric is not great. Dreadwaters is basically Jace 1's third ability, so not overly scary. Engulf the Shore is scary. That's a nasty card. It makes you lose your critters. You don't like that. So each creature your opponent controls is returned to the top of their library. So you notice that it's just going to affect you. It does not affect it's not going to affect the Geier Reach. So that kind of stinks. Always watching, Brain in a Jar, that kind of stuff. Really not too much to worry about. So how do you go about beating this node? Well, with the Ob Nixilis deck, the idea is to get to your third ability, and then once you get to that third ability, you just draw your opponent out. So you kill them by drawing cards. So if you're unfamiliar with Ob Nixilis' abilities, the third ability, Forbidden Knowledge, has create a support gem with whenever any player draws a card, deal 8 damage to your opponent. It's pretty easy to draw cards. That first ability, Dark Pact, definitely helps. Torment, being able to destroy creatures as a second ability for only 9 loyalty, is also pretty helpful. Just beware, Ob Nixilis' mana gains are terrible. Like, the worst in the game level of terrible. So keep that in mind if you use Ob. His abilities more than make up for it, though. So this is not me saying that Ob Nixilis is bad. For creatures, you'll see that I'm using Orzhov Racketeers. These are going to make it so that your opponent discards a card every turn. and then Urgoros, who will also be making it so that your opponent discards a card every turn. Now, it also has the added benefit of then if your opponent has no cards in hand, you draw a card. So that's going to help trigger Obnixilus's ability to deal more damage to your opponent. Now, the point of these two critters is once you get rid of all the cards from your opponent's hand, you really don't have to worry about all the horrible things that your opponent is going to do to you. And it makes all of the removal that you have a lot more manageable. So for removal, we have Consecrate, namely for Consume. This is going to bypass Hexproof if your opponent's first critter has Hexproof, and you're going to gain life equal to the creature's power. If you take a look at the power of the opponent's creatures at 7, 8, 6, 8, and Geier Reach being able to go to 12 when it flips, this is quite a substantial amount of life that you're going to get back, and it gives you a way of just gaining a little bit of life back with mono black. Engrath's Rampage, I know that there are no vanguards, but this is just another way of getting around Hexproof. It destroys your opponent's first creature. Death Sprout is my love, my life, my joy. It destroys a creature and fetches lands and gives them mana. Super wonderful. Then finally, Discovery. Discovery is card draw if you want to do damage, or removal if you need to get rid of something. So pretty sweet. For supports, we've got some gem conversion. Just run 2 black gem converters. I have Witch's Cottage here, but if you have a better option, go ahead and use a better option. And then I've got Dragon's Horde. There is no better option than Dragon's Horde because Dragon's Horde is going to draw you cards. So this is the best option because card draw and Obnixilus is fantastic. Now, I have Eldest Reborn in here, but you can just as easily run a 3rd Convert to black, and that will do just fine. So the Eldest Reborn bypasses Hexproof by destroying your opponent's first creature. It's also going to make your opponent discard cards, and then it's going to give you one of your opponent's creatures. This can be really nice for just taking Sigarda, just so that you have something with Defender, or you can take Audric. That really, by and large, sums up the deck. The last card in here is Tombbound Lich, which is just here for the combination of Lifelink, because that's going to keep you in the game longer. Death Touch, so that it kills Sigarda in the event that Sigarda comes out. And the card draw, so discarding to draw a card to do a little bit of bonus damage. So all in all, this deck works really, really well. You should do fine with it. You just have to make sure that you prioritize charging up your removal, get rid of your opponent's hand, and cruise to a victory. Now, for people who have more at their disposal, this Karn deck is going to win basically every time, right? So make sure that you make matches. If you don't have Omniscience in your starting hand, make sure that you're making matches to get loyalty so that you can use that first ability as often as possible and fish for Omniscience. Your goal is to have Omniscience and Starfield of Nyx in your hand at the same time, so that when you actually use the Omniscience and it burns itself out, you get it back. So you definitely want that. Nice. Voice crack. I'm 12 again. This is lovely. Now, this deck is going to work the exact same way as it did in the previous video, with the difference of instead of No Mercy, we have Settle the Wreckage. This is just here because it's going to be exiling your opponent's creatures instead of destroying them. So this is going to bypass Pacifist. Just gets rid of their creatures, and we can call it good. Other than that, the way that we kill the opponent is with Hazarets and Approach of the Second Sun. So Hazarets is going to fetch 4 of these things and then do a ridiculous amount of damage. Niv Mizzet Reborn and Sphinx of the Guild Pact should basically never be cast. They're just here to fish for with the first ability because they are going to improve all of our mana bonuses permanently by 2 when we fetch them, up to 3 times. So if we fetch 3 of those, then all of our mana bonuses become +7 and our loyalty becomes +6. So yeah, pretty sweet. We want that. I mean, I think the loyalty becomes +6. Maybe the loyalty stays neutral and it goes up when you get a colorless one. Either way, you'll win every time with this deck. It's crazy. It's the best PvE deck in my mind for like big health, big time opponents. Now, If you can't make either of these decks, what should you do? All right, so this one's a little bit more tricky. So here's where if you can get away with Disable, then that'll be your friend. So if you have Smooth Moves, X-Lax, if you have Hixus, Hixus is great for just locking your opponent down. Once you get your opponent's 3 creatures locked down, it's basically game over. There's really not a whole lot that your opponent can do because they don't have anything that can get rid of supports. So this is really nice. Now, if you have a way of getting this thing's shields to boost via something like, I don't know, Kiora, right? So the Kiora Vanguard, everyone has that. Vanguard, Kiora, where are you? So with the -2 is going to give a non-Vanguard support you control 2 shields. So Hixus only has 1 on its own, but if you just burn this thing out with Hixus out to just boost up its shields, your opponent, the Geier Reach Bandit, is going to be able to do nothing. Literally nothing, right? And then once they've got the 3 creatures down, Exert Influence isn't going to do anything to you. Engulf the Shore is going to slow you down a bit, but that's really it. So Kiora and Hixus combination will do pretty well for you. You can also go with Cast Out if you have that instead of Hixus if you don't have Hixus, and that works pretty well. So here's Cast Out. The downside to Cast Out is that you can't cast out Rattle Chains and you can't cast out the humans if Sigarda's down. The bonus to Cast Out is once you cast out Sigarda, you can then start to cast out the humans because Sigarda loses the ability that gives them hexproof when she becomes disabled. So just make sure that Rattle Chains doesn't come down. Rattle Chains is a punk. So to get rid of Rattle Chains, you really want to make sure that you have like bounce your opponent's first creature or destroy your opponent's first creature, stuff like that. So first or last creature are going to be your best bet for that. So you can go ahead, type in like first creature right into your removal. And this will pull up all of your, no, don't be silly. Yes, this will pull up all of your things that target a first creature. Unfortunately, it's also going to pull up all the things that just target creatures in general, but this is where you're going to see stuff like Consecrate and Consume, right? Destroy the first creature. Or you've got stuff like Status, right? So destroy Artifact, Enchantment, if you can't destroy the opponent's first creature. So that's going to be stuff that'll help you get rid of Rattle Chains. So for this, focus on removal first, and then on creatures, you should be fine, right? So I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope you get perfect, and I'll see you in the next one.